Well, if you are headed out for the Texas Book Festival this weekend in downtown, be advised of some road closures. This morning, crews were already setting up barricades around 11th in Colorado. That's because of the weekend. It's the 22nd annual Texas Book Festival being held over at the state capitol and surrounding grounds for you to check out. And thousands of authors and readers will be coming together for the event. But the festival goes beyond just author meet and greets. In 2016, the Texas Book Festival awarded $100,000 in Texas public libraries. They also gifted close to 9,000 books to elementary school students in Title I schools in Austin and other Texas cities. Since the festival began in '95, it has donated nearly $3 million to Texas public libraries. And they also have donated more than 81,000 books to students in Title I programs in Texas. So if you're planning on attending this weekend, one of the books you're going to be seeing is right here. It is Death in the Air, the true story of a serial killer, the Great London Smog. And joining us is the author and UT professor of journalism, Kate Dawson. Hey, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is a great, interesting book, and so many people have been talking about it. Kind of take us through how you've intertwined the smog, but also with a serial killer.
Well, so you've touched on this before. In 1952, in December, was the first really big coal spill they had. And so there were 8 million people burning really cheap coal, right? And there was a weather inversion, which means there was cold air that was trapped by warm air, and it created a lid over the city, and it trapped pollution for 5 days. And so there are millions of Londoners who can't see. It smells like rotten eggs. It's this sort of yellow haze. And for 5 days, it was just a nightmare, and it shut down the entire city. So within the people who are trapped in London is a serial killer named John Reginald Christie, who was famous in his own right later on. But in the fog, he was just another person caught in the smog and trapped at home with his wife, which is not great news for a serial killer normally. And he had already killed 2 women, and they were in the backyard buried, and no one knew about it. And a few days after the smog lifted, he had made a plan during the smog to resign from his job, and then a few days after the smog lifted, he killed his wife. And later on, within about 3 or 4 months, the stories converge, and it's mostly in the media. So in media and in the parliament. So kind of what we see today happened in 1953, where a salacious story of a serial killer on the run, and women under the floorboards of the parlor and behind the walls and in the garden obviously captured the headlines much more than a smog, even though the smog killed at the time 4,000 people.
They were more worried about the serial killer than what they were walking outside and breathing.
Well, absolutely, and I think we see this all the time, which is, you know, it's so much easier to be concerned about a clear and present danger like a serial killer stalking the streets of London than something that requires systemic change, which is, you know, air pollution and the environment. And also to kind of set the scene, London in 1952-53, this is 7 years after World War II. The city had been bombed. It was bankrupt. And, you know, it was a high unemployment and a small police force, and so it was a difficult time. So they just wanted to move on. And air pollution was a huge issue, just like it is today. And it was very difficult to tackle. And so yes, this really creepy, weird serial killer made headlines, and the fog was buried.
Yeah, and the smog is something Rosie was mentioning. She was a huge fan of the show The Crown, and they kind of talked about it. So you kind of get the real story in this book versus the storyline of maybe what you saw in the show. Talk about how folks can get your book, meet you at the Texas Book Festival.
So I'll be at the festival tomorrow, Saturday at 1:30, and I'm in one of the Capitol Extension buildings. And the Texas Book Festival is fantastic, and we have so many wonderful authors there. And if you look at the website online, it has our whole schedule. And of course, you can get the book at the festival, and then Book People and wherever books are sold. So you know what that means: Amazon and Barnes and Noble and everywhere else.
And you have great reviews from New York Times and NPR, and congrats.
Thank you. I'm really proud to be from Austin and to be able to bring this story, even though it's London-based. I think it's important.
Well, it's always great to have an Austinite too. Have such a big book. Kate, thanks so much.